Over the past few weeks, we've had a lot of news regarding Dragon Age Veilguard, and with the release date fast approaching, many fans are asking themselves the same question. The question that comes up with each new release. What existing characters are going to return? So I thought I'd speculate on some familiar faces I thought we could see again in Veilguard. Now, before we get started, I will point out that several of the characters I'm going to mention can die during the series depending on the player's choices and actions. However, with the reduction of choices available for us to carry over into Veilguard, the possibility of these characters dying is kind of irrelevant. So I'm just going to go with the possibility that Bioware will have these characters alive regardless, which is kind of hinted at with the Iron Bull romance for Dragon Age Inquisition. Also, I wrote this video before all that information came out, so I'm really just not bothered to change anything. Number 1. Merrill. Merrill is a Dalish elven mage, former first of the Sabre clan, and a companion and possible love interest to Hawke in Dragon Age 2. Like all firsts, Merrill is a mage well versed in Dalish magic and history, but unlike other firsts, Merrill openly practices blood magic in hopes of using it to repair damage to Lilliana. Merrill's choice to use blood magic and risk possession from a demon causes the death of the clan's keeper Merithari, and either the death of her clan or them shunning her further. If Merrill survives the events of Dragon Age 2, Varric will tell the Inquisitor that she stayed in Kirkwall to look after the city elves, left homeless by the fighting between the mages and the Templars. And if Merrill entered a romance with Hawke and they survived Inquisition, Merrill will most likely seek out Hawke at Whiteout Fortress or wait for them to return to Kirkwall. To me, Merrill makes sense as a character who would return in Veilguard, due to her connection to both Solas and Fenrirel, who she talks about a lot in Dragon Age 2, and the Illuvians, which Solas is making use of. In fact, Merrill's Illuvian can be seen in the background of Dragon Age Inquisition at the Crossroads. Merrill is an idealist who believes not only can she save the elven people and her culture, but that it is her responsibility to do so. We see this through Merrill's actions in trying to rebuild the Illuvian at all costs and her desire to protect the city elves. And with this knowledge, I could see Merrill throwing her lot in with Solas and his goal to save the elven people. We know that after the opening section of Veilguard, Solas will be trapped in a pocket part of the Fade, but before this we know that he has many elves working for him. And with his imprisonment, I could possibly see this group still working towards his goals without him, or possibly following Morgan, as we do see some elves with her in the initial release date trailer. I could see Merrill as one of these elves being cast as sort of a lieutenant or researcher for Solas or Morgan, looking into the Illuvians or other elven artifacts. Or perhaps she, as with many other elves, have flocked to the service of their returned gods, seeing Elgarnon and Gillenon as the saviours of the elven people. The exploration journal made reference to the followers of the gods operating in Ravane, and having a familiar face who cares deeply about the elven people as one of their members would make a lot of sense from a narrative perspective. And if Merrill could appear in Veilguard, then maybe one of her best friends could as well. Number 2. Benris. Benris is an elven warrior, former slave of Tevinter, and like Merrill, a companion and possible love interest to Hawke in Dragon Age 2. During his time as a slave, Benris was infused with a series of lyrium tattoos through some sort of ancient ritual. These tattoos gave Benris incredible powers, allowing him to phase through solid objects, including individuals. Combining this along with his time as a slave in Tevinter has given Fenris a deep hatred of mages and magic. After escaping his enslavement for the last time, Fenris journeys to Kirkwall where he meets Hawke and creates a new life for himself. Fenris is constantly hounded by his former master and eventually has the opportunity to kill him. If Fenris survives the events of Dragon Age 2, Varric states that Fenris is off killing Tevinter slavers preying on refugees created by the Mage Templar War. If romance in Dragon Age 2, Varric believes that Fenris will reunite with Hawke eventually. Fenris is also quite interesting as he appears in a comic series that takes place after the events of Dragon Age Inquisition. Around the year 941, Fenris, now known as the Blue Wraith, is waging his own war against the Tevinter slavers. By 945, Fenris has found himself working alongside Vaya, a Freljden elven squire, and her party as they complete a task for the Inquisition and try to stop the ritual that gave Fenris his powers from being used again. They are unable to stop the ritual but are able to defeat the creature it creates, who used to be an old friend of Fenris's. Following the end of the comic, Fenris accompanies Vaya and Franchesca, another member of the party, as they return to Freljden. I think there's a really good chance that we could see Fenris again in Veilguard. I believe if we are going to see him, he'll return to Tevinter to continue his war against Tevinter's corrupt leadership and their slavers. Since a good chunk of Veilguard will take place in Tevinter, meeting Fenris there as he hunts down slavers and frees their victims does make a lot of sense. And maybe we could even see him be a member or at least an ally to the Shadow Dragons or Nev Gallus. I would love to see Fenris return as a one-man army fighting against slavers and the old guard of Tevinter, and he may not be the only one fighting against this old guard of Tevinter. Number 3. Dorian. Dorian Pavis is a human Altus mage of the Tevinter Imperium, a companion to the Inquisitor, and a possible love interest to male Inquisitors in Dragon Age Inquisition. As the son of a powerful magister and an apprentice to another, Dorian was at the top of Tevinter society, and would advance into Tevinter circles under the tutelage of Master Garion Alexius. However, as time passed, he would find himself at odds with his own family. What was left of Dorian's relationship with his family came to an end when his parents tried to use a blood magic ritual to make their son straight. And by this time Dorian had fallen out with Alexius over the latter's obsession with saving his dying son. Dorian wandered the Tevinter countryside before journeying south and joining the Inquisition. Dorian's motives for joining the Inquisition were to stop a Devinter cult, the Venatori, from helping Corypheus from attaining godhood, and hopefully in the process save his home nation. By the end of Inquisition, Dorian had become inspired to return to Devinter and save it from itself. By the time of the Trespasser DLC, set 2 years after the events of Inquisition, Dorian's father had died and he had taken his seat in the Magisterium, the ruling body of the Devinter Imperium. Dorian plans to work with a friend, Magister Maevaris Salani, in the hopes of reforming and redeeming Devinter. And we see some of Dorian's fight to save Devinter in the comic Dragon Age Deception and the novel Dragon Age Devinter Knights. During these stories, Dorian works with a variety of allies in his struggle to bring down the more corrupt elements of Devinter society while protecting the downtrodden. I can imagine Dorian returning to Dragon Age the Veilguard as a potential ally or advisor to Rook, and since we know Maevaris Salani will be appearing in Veilguard, having Dorian be there beside her makes a lot of sense. I imagine us helping Dorian and Maevaris create their new Devinter by fighting not just against new threats to Thedas, but also the old elements of Devinter that stand in their way. Number 4. Sten. Sten is a warrior of the Qunari people and a companion to the Warden in Dragon Age Origins. Like all Qunaris, Sten, which is not his real name but his role in the Qun, was told what his future would be as a child. He was to serve in the Qun's army, the Antam. Sten excelled as a soldier. He quickly rose through the ranks and was eventually given a task by the Arashok to learn what the Blight was. Sten, along with a company of soldiers, travelled to Ferelden as the Fifth Blight began in the hopes of finding an answer to the Arashok's question. One night, Sten's party was ambushed by Darkspawn and a gravely wounded Sten was the only survivor. He was found and cared for by some farmers who he ended up murdering when he realised his sword was missing. Seeking a way to atone, he joined the Warden and helped them defeat the Blight. Following the end of the Blight, Sten returned to Pervalin with an answer for the Arashok's question. Years later, during the events of the comics Those Who Speak and Until We Sleep, Sten reunited with his old companion Alistair in the latter's search for King Marek. By now, however, he was no longer Sten. He was the new Arashok, the leader of the Antam. Sten's fate after the end of Until We Sleep is unknown, but we do know what the Qunari are up to, or at least what the Antam is up to. Sometime around 944-945 Dragon, the Antam invades Devinter, taking several cities. This attack, however, was not supported by the other branches of the Qun, leading to a lack of support like supplies or people to rule the newly conquered lands. Shortly after launching their invasion of Devinter, the Antam began invading both Ravane and Antiva, including capturing the city of Trevesa, which we will see in Dragon Age the Veilguard. Across all three nations, the Antam are actively being fought against by local militaries or other factions like the Antivan Crows. Sten's role in the invasion is unknown, and I can see him appearing in Veilguard in a number of ways. As the Arashok, he could have ordered the Antam to invade, having grown tired with the other parts of the Qun not spreading their way of life to the rest of Thedas fast enough. Sten just decided to do it by himself by force. If this is how Sten appears in Veilguard, then he could be a possible antagonist, someone we'll have to fight against and turn his armies away, or possibly ally with and support his invasion of Thedas. We know the Antam are going to be one of our opposing factions in Veilguard, so like with Merrill, having a familiar face to lead them would make a lot of sense. Another possible option is that he is still the Arashok, but rather than leading the Antam in an invasion of mainland Thedas, he commands a loyalist section of the Antam, still allied to the rest of the Qun. This still brings up the possibility of Sten being an ally, just one we wouldn't want to help too much because we wouldn't want him to have his army back. Because regardless of which way Sten appears in Veilguard, he still believes in the Qunari invasion of Thedas. Number 5. Volta. Volta hails from the dwarven city of Orzammar. Originally coming from a smith family, Volta eventually became a field researcher for the Shaper, an organisation that documents the lore, history and events of the dwarven people. We're introduced to Volta in the Dragon Age Inquisition DLC The Descent, where she is researching a series of earthquakes she believes are linked to the mythical Titans. In her research, Volta is assisted by the Inquisitor and Ren, a member of the Legion of the Dead. During their adventure, Ren is killed by the Shabbartal, an offshoot of dwarven society who live deep in the earth where they worship and protect a sleeping Titan. At the end of the DLC, Volta is hit by raw lyrium and somehow gains what can only be described as magical abilities, something no other dwarf can do. Well, maybe one other dwarf can. Following this, Volta states that the Titan recognized her as a child and made her pure. While the Inquisitor and their party leave the deep roads, Volta decides to stay behind, asking the Inquisitor to tell nobody what happened. Shortly after this, Ren's body goes missing. I think Volta appearing in Veilguard makes a lot of sense. We know that the Evanurus, the false elven gods, fought and killed the Titans to get their lyrium blood, Mythal being one of the Evanurus who did so. Given the connection between the Titans who may be waking up and the Evanurus, at least 2 of which will appear in Veilguard, the odds are these 2 forces may end up butting heads. And who better to help guide Rook through this conflict but the only dwarf who's connected to Titans and just happens to know a bit of magic. We also know that Harding will have some sort of magical ability in Veilguard, and there's a possibility she'll probably gain her magical abilities in the same way Volta did. So perhaps Volta is there when it happens, seeking to bring more dwarves to their full potential, and Harding is just the next on their list. Or perhaps we find Volta in the last moments of her life, and she passes her abilities on to Harding, hoping that Harding will continue whatever it is she started. Number 6 and 7, Via and Franchesca. So okay, I'm slightly cheating here by putting Via and Franchesca together, however these 2 characters are so linked together that I think it makes sense to put them together. Via is a Ferelden elven squire who grew up in squalor. She's introduced in the Knight Errant comic in service to Sir Aaron Hawthorne, a travelling knight. Via is a lovable, cunning character who uses her skills to help the common folk across Thedas. Franchesca's upbringing was very different. She's the daughter of Magister Illyrio and Vidis, one of the elite of the Winter. Franchesca is an accomplished mage showing serious talent for plant magic, something usually only seen in Dalish mages, although this is something her father thought very little of. During the Knight Errant comic, both Via and Sir Aaron find themselves in the service of the Inquisition, searching for the Red Lyrium idol from Dragon Age 2, which is in the hands of the Venatori. The pair end up in the Winter, where they team up with con artists Olivia Pride and Calix. In her search for the idol, Franchesca is forced to kill her father to save her new friends. The last time we see Via and Franchesca is in the Dark Fortress comic, where they and their allies confront the Venatori as they try to recreate the ritual that gave Fenris his abilities. The comic ends with Via killing the leader of the Venatori, the first person she has ever killed, and Sir Aaron sacrificing himself. Before he dies, Sir Aaron gives Via a letter where he asks King Alistair to make Via a knight, the first elven knight. Via plans to return Sir Aaron's body to Ferelden, with Franchesca and Fenris going with her. Via and Franchesca are two great characters that work really well together. When they first meet, they can't stand each other, but as the story progresses, they become friends due to their shared experiences. Originally, I'd hoped both, or at least one of them, would be companions for Veilguard. However, since that's not the case anymore, I could see them appearing as allies to Fenris. Perhaps after finishing up in Ferelden, they've returned to the Winter to help Fenris in his cause to stop the slavers, or maybe even working with Dorian to help reform the Winter. It's also possible they could be agents of the Inquisition or allies to Varric, as Via was in the comics. Number 8. The Architect. We are first introduced to the Architect in Dragon Age's second novel, The Calling, where he hoped to bring peace between the Darkspawn and the other races of Thedas by spreading the taint to all the other races and killing the old gods before they become archdemons, thus preventing any future blights and ushering in an age of peace. In his endeavours, the Architect is assisted by the Grey Wardens Bregan, Genevieve and Utha. However, both Bregan and Genevieve turn on the Architect by the end of The Calling but don't survive. The Architect's second and last appearance is in Origin's expansion, Dragon Age Awakening. Here, he along with Uther are continuing their plans to try and bring peace between the Darkspawn and the other races. This time by using Grey Warden blood to create the Disciples, self-aware Darkspawn capable of independent thought. By the end of Awakening, the Warden has the option of either allying with the Architect, in which case he disappears and is supposedly never seen again, or you can just kill him outright. However, this isn't where the Architect's story was meant to end. In the original version of the quest, Here Lies the Abyss from Dragon Age Inquisition, the Inquisitor would have ended up in the Deep Roads where they would have met the Architect. However, in the final version of the game, they end up in the Fade and fight a Fear Demon. So with Bioware having the idea to bring back the Architect already, I think there's a good chance he could appear, and unlike other characters on this list, it doesn't matter if he's dead or not. When we are first introduced to the Architect, we are led to believe he's a unique Darkspawn, a one-off that should not exist, but this is far from the truth. The truth is that the Architect is one of the Magister's Sidereal, the 7 members of the Magisterium who physically breached the Fade, entered the Golden City, and became the first Darkspawn. And as I'm sure you're well aware, we have met another first Darkspawn already, Corypheus, and during the events of Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition, we see Corypheus die and come back. Now, it is possible that the Architect was permanently killed by the Warden, as the Grey Wardens are the only ones who can permanently kill archdemons, so it is possible that he could permanently die in the same way. But since we don't have confirmation that a Grey Warden can permanently kill one of the original Darkspawn, I still think there's a chance he could be alive. Now, we know that in Veilguard, the Darkspawn are going to play a big role as servants of the Evanurus, or at least as servants of Gillenon, so I'd love to see the Architect return and play a possible alternative to Gillenon when it comes to the Darkspawn, although I admit this one is a bit of a long shot. Number 9. The Formless One. Now we have my last entry here, and this one is a bit of a slightly strange choice, as our last character here has never appeared in a Dragon Age game or in any Dragon Age content before. Formless One is a member of the Forbidden Ones, a group of 4 unique and very powerful demons that have existed long before the fall of the ancient Elven kingdoms. In fact, at one point the Forbidden Ones had physical forms, but they gave them up long ago to become spirits. Now we've met 3 of the Forbidden Ones across the other 3 Dragon Age games. Gaxkang the Unbounded is met in Dragon Age Origins and can be slain by the Warden. Zebenkek is a Desire Demon who can be found in Dragon Age 2 and can be killed by Hawk. While Imshel, another Desire Demon, Choice Spirit, is seen in both the novel Dragon Age The Masked Empire and Dragon Age Inquisition. In Inquisition, the Inquisitor has the option of fighting and killing Imshel, unlike Gaxkang and Zebenbeck, who must be killed if you interact with them. Given that the Formless One is the last member of the Forbidden Ones, and that we have seen a member of this group in each game, I think it makes a lot of sense that the Formless One will appear in Dragon Age The Veilguard. I think that we're probably going to see them appear as a boss at the end of a side quest, similar to how we've seen the others appear in the previous games. And there we have it. There are the 9 characters that I want to see in Dragon Age The Veilguard. But there are many more that could appear, whether they are side characters, allies or enemies. Is there anyone on this list you definitely think will not appear, or is there anyone you think I should have put on this list? Please do leave a comment down below to let me know what you think. Like this video if you enjoyed it, check out some of my other videos and subscribe to the channel to stay update on all of my latest videos. And of course, thanks for watching.